USE, ZW. Don't see nothing about THHN, but we see it in the 90-degree column. Right? So what does this mean? Because it's confusing when it says the terminals are rated 75 degrees C, but it's THHN. Branch circuit conductors are copper, THHN, and the terminals are rated to 75 degrees C. And we took our 22 amps, times it by 1.15, or times it by 1.25, we got 27.5 amps. I think we're missing something. The THHN is just the insulation, of course. The limitations are always the termination, of course. That's what I'm wrapping my head around that as well. That's one thing we're missing right now. We got 5 horsepower from 430.248 is 28 amps at 230 volts. And we know the motor nameplate indicates a full load current of 22 amps. And now we go to 430.32, each motor in a continuous duty application and rated more than 1 horsepower shall be protected against overload by one of the means. A separate overload device that is responsive to motor current shall be able to trip it. Motors with a marked service factor of 1.15 or greater. This value shall be permitted as provided in 430.2c. Each winding considered where separate motor overload is connected so that it does not carry. There's nothing I really need there. Motors with a marked service factor of 1.15 or greater. We know this is marked with a service factor of 1.15. Motor nameplate is 22 amps. 1.110.14c tells us 60 degrees unless, of course, wire and terminals are 75 degrees. Then we just ignore the 60 degrees. Right, I remember that. All right. Tells us 60 unless, of course, wire terminals. Then we just ignore the 60, correct. 100% correct. Know that. So, wire terminals are rated 75, then we just ignore the 60. Yeah, so in this question, we got a 5 horsepower, 230 volt, single phase motor is rated for continuous duty and has a service factor of 1.15. The motor nameplate indicates a full load current of 22 amperes. The branch circuit conductors are copper THHN and the terminals are rated 75 degrees C. What are the minimum branch circuit conductor size and the maximum initial overload setting permitted under 430.32a? So we got to find the minimum branch circuit conductor. It's 2 questions in one. In overloads, folks forget it doesn't have to meet both factors. All right, okay. See, this is why I like doing these, because I always struggle on these motor questions. That's why I wanted to do it for this questions of the week, because I am getting into more calculations in my next module. I got to figure out these. I can figure out the dwelling calculations, but motors I'll struggle on. So, I know the answer for this one, but I did forget and I'm struggling. Service factor or rise. In overloads, folks forget it doesn't have to meet both factors, service factor or rise. I have a great motor video. Yeah, you do. I got it bookmarked. I gotta watch it. I'm gonna have to watch it after this live stream I do. And everyone who's watching this should watch it. That's why I got Paul Abernathy's stuff all linked through my site, because that's who I learned from. And that's who I push everyone to learn from as well. So you can learn along with me. Okay, so we got to do, we already know the motor is 28 amps at 230 volts. Service factor of 115. So motor, single motor, just 430.22, of course, at 125. Yup. All right. The overload is nameplate value. Okay. Trying to scroll. Conductors, supplies, conductors that 430.32 single motor. Conductors that supply a single motor used in a continuous duty application shall have an ampacity of not less than 125% of the motor load current rating as determined by 430.6A1 or not less than specified in 430.22A through 430.22G. Single motors 430.22. All right. So let me see. We know the motor nameplate is just, the overload is the nameplate value. All right. So conductors that supply a single motor used in a continuous duty application shall have an ampacity of not less than 125% of the motor full load current rating as determined by 430.6A1 or not less than specified in 430.22A1 through 432.22G. Okay. All right, so we know it's 120. So all right, so we're on the right track with our 27.5 amps. Now it's just finding that wire gauge. So I'm going to take our capacities table. We're going to take overload is nameplate in amps, and initial overload is 430.32. Okay. The pieces are coming together. Overload is nameplate in amps, and initial overload is 430.32. All right. So we're going to take 125, or 22 times 125. No. 2 times 1, 27.5. So we got 27.5 for 22 amps, and then we're going to take our 28, and we're going to look for what 28 amps can work under. What on the ampacities table. All right, so we're going to look in the ampacities. We're going to take our 28 amps. And we are going to look in THHN. And 28 amps. I got 10 gauge. 28 amps. Got 10 gauge. Overload is nameplate in amps, and initial overload is 430.32A. 140% of FLA. 40% of FLA. On motors, always size conductors first, then do overload after. Okay, all right, that's what I'm doing wrong. I dropped my pen. That's what I was doing wrong. Okay. It's all in how you digest the question. And I am digesting it wrong. So we're gonna reset here. We're gonna save our information, and we're gonna start over. Got single phase motor is rated for continuous duty and has a service factor of 1.15. The motor nameplate indicates a full load current of 22 amperes. The branch circuit conductors are copper, THHN, and the terminals are rated 75 degrees Celsius. What is the minimum branch circuit conductor size and maximum initial overload setting permitted under 430.32a? On motors, always size the conductors first, then do overload afterwards. Take motor FLC at 125%, then size. Take nameplate amps times 140, and that's overload. Okay. I got it. All right. Okay. All right. Motor FLC. Okay. And then all right. Okay. So we are going to go ahead with our FLC, which we know is 28 amps times 1.25. That's 35 amps. And then hint, overloads usually never match conductor sizes because motors are protected by SC/GF. The overload is simply based on nameplate factors. Okay. All right. So, but won't always, it never matches the conductor sizes. Okay. Overload is simply based on nameplate factors. Okay. So, we take our nameplate amps, which is 22 amps. We're going to times it by 140. That's 30.8. Now, we know our 35 amps. Got 38 amps here. And now we're going to go to ampacities. And the closest one I got is 10 gauge THHN copper for 30.8 amps, 40 amps. So I got 10 gauge, and I got 35 amps for my overload. For my overload motor. For my motor. The overload is simply based on nameplate factor. So it's a 5 horsepower motor, right? Yes, correct. It's a 5 horsepower motor at 230 volts, single phase motor, rated for continuous duty, and has a service factor of 115. The motor nameplate indicates a full load current of 22 amperes, and the branch circuit conductors are copper THHN. The terminals are rated 75 degrees Celsius. What are the minimum branch circuit conductor size and the maximum initial overload setting permitted under 430.32A1? Yep. 22 amps times 140. Okay. So that's our overload. which is 22 amps times 140 is 30.8 amps. And we got our branch circuit at 35. .28 times 125 is amps for size on conductors. Use 75-degree column and 310.16. Yep. So 28 times 125, 35, and it'd still be the same. Okay, so I got mine confused. Okay, that's what I was doing wrong. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we learned. I was confusing branch circuit conductors and overload in this question. My own question confused me. All right, so that shows you how cool these code questions are on necchat.com and how good TradeHog is at giving you some good questions. It does happen, but I like it when it happens because I actually learned something from that. Because I always struggle with motor questions. It's like the least looked in part of the book for me, I would have to say, is 430, because I just don't mess with motors that much, and it's not in my head as much. But it really should be, because that's probably what I would end up getting on my real exam. It'd be all motor questions, and that's something I won't have experience with. So I'm happy I didn't do great on that question. I actually learned. Thank you for joining in, Paul Abernathy. You're just old. Nah, you're young and spry. What do you mean? You're just old. Don't say that. I'm studying for my J-Man license. Any online quiz and time exam recommendations? The guy in our chat right now, Electrical Code Academy Inc. Go to him. fasttracksystem.com. No S, just fasttracksystem.com. NECchat.com is where you can find all the free sources, question of the week, and there's a free ampacity course so you can get familiar with his system and everything going on. And then you got JoshTheSparky there. You can go and try to find some sources. I always link and update sources for everything going on. You're a hack? No, you're not. I can show you some real hacks. But go to fasttracksystem.com and you browse through, and you can pick out. There's even necquiz.com is still up, I believe, and you can get some free quizzes on there. But for starting out, you should, if you're already thinking that way, just start doing some practice questions to get familiar, and then work your way into Paul Abernathy's community through NEC chat or other forums like that. And then once you're familiar with whatever education system you're in the community of, then you can go fully into it because you know what's going on, you're familiar with it. Don't just, there's a $1,000 education course, let me get it, and you don't learn anything, maybe because you're not even into learning from that certain teacher or person. But just, you're in the right spot if you're asking those questions. Electrical Code, they just put my name in the front of the NEC because I bribed them. So you're saying if you want your name in the front of the code book, just make some briberies? Oh man. Just throw money at NFPA? I already do. I'm already halfway there. Every month. All right. That question took me about 45 minutes to get through. Now, on a real exam, you would probably zoom, scroll right through, flag that at the end, and then go through it after you did all the easy ones. But like I said, I like taking my time and going through it, especially when I'm in, like, this stream counts as my study session for the day. So, gotta run, fella. Keep it up and keep shining bright. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. I hope you have a good day. Take it easy and keep up the good work and teaching everyone good, you know? You power people like me, so I'll keep shining bright as long as you give me the fuel. All right. So Brainbuster number 2. Question number 2. I've dropped this pen about 8 times. I'm about to just throw it in the trash. Okay, so let's continue here. I'm going to keep my calculator open because I can already tell we might need some more calculations going on. So, Brainbuster number 2. How many 12 gauge AWG, how many 12 gauge THHN conductors are permitted in a 4 by 4 inch metal box that is 1/4 inch deep with no devices, no internal clamps, and no equipment grounding conductors? So with those mentioned, I think this will be pretty, fingers crossed, pretty easy. Last time I said that, I was sitting here for 45 minutes trying to break down the question. So hopefully this one's a little bit easier, right? So first thing we're going to open up is, we're going to open up chapter 3, and we're going to go down to conductors. We need outlet devices, pole and junction boxes, Article 314 in Chapter 3 for this question. All right, I can immediately like that because I'm familiar with this type of question. As soon as it starts saying no devices, no internal clamps, no equipment grounded conductors, like something goes off in my head, like, oh, that's in Chapter 3, and it's 314. With the metal box table. I just remember the table for the metal boxes. Metal boxes. All right. And so we're going to open that up, 314, and we're going to go to that table I was talking about. We don't know for sure that's like the page that we need to be on for this question, but just to get us in that environment, we're going to go to it, and it is 314.16. which is like really easy to remember. 310.16 and 314.16, probably the most popular tables in the NEC. I would have to say it's probably what you'll be in the most. And it's weird because it's like I say that, but when I was working, I wasn't in the book as much as I really expected to be on a commercial setting. But I mean, when you're in a residential setting, why wouldn't you want to know those 2 tables? Just if the foreman or a journeyman asked you a question, you could bop it out like that, and they'd probably be like, "Oh, damn! You know, this guy's got something clicking up here. He's got gears turning." Anyways, so 314.16, number of conductors and outlet device and junction boxes and conduit bodies. Boxes and conduit bodies shall be of an approved size to provide free space for all enclosed conductors. In no case shall the volume of the box as calculated in 314.16a be less than the fill calculation as calculated in 314.16b. The minimum volume for conduit bodies shall be calculated in 314.16c. So that just gave us a lot of information that we really didn't need for this question. And that's what, like, these questions are going to make you do. They make you, like, go through the code book, start reading a bunch of stuff, and then before you know it, like 40 minutes went by. And it's not like purposely doing that, but it's trying to get you to just like decipher in your head before you even open the code book, the question, and then you open the code book to that area, and then just unlocking certain like mechanisms in your brain from the question itself. You'll be able to figure it out in the code book. And it's just by doing questions constantly and reading it and spending the 45 minutes wasting time reading the question and reading the whole article to understand it. You know, it's not a waste of time if you're learning something. That's how I try to think of it, you know, because I'll track off like I am now and spend an hour on one question, but I want to learn it. I want to break it down piece by piece and understand it. Just like how the overload was different from the conductors in that last question. And I don't want to start like mixing up questions here, but you know, just a little chat about that. All right, so how many number 12 THHN conductors are permitted in a 4x4 metal box that is an inch and a quarter deep, with no devices, no internal clamps, and no equipment grounded conductors? We got A, which is 8. We got B, which is 9. We got C, which is 10. We got D, which is 11. Okay? So we open up 314.16, and we are going to, I'm going to immediately go down to volume allowance. All right, and it's saying conductors. We go down to box fill calculations, because this is a little bit like a box fill calculation. And you can go through the table as well and see if you can solve it that way. Sometimes I'll be able to solve the question through the table just instantly, but we'll take a browse through it and just see. I really wish you guys could see me scrolling through the site, but I have to set that up next time so you can see, because it's just easier to explain visually while talking, so it doesn't just look like I'm staring off into the void as well. So we go through this table and we don't see like a 4x4 metal box, right? You see 4x1 quarter round octangle, 4x1 1/4 square. You see all of these not really clicking, right? So the next thing we'll go through, we don't need to go through, you know, clamp support or equipment, because it has no clamps, no equipment, and it doesn't even have any devices. So you don't even have to go through any device or equipment fill. It's just how many 12 gauge THH conductors are permitted in a 4x4 inch metal box that is an inch and quarter deep with no devices. 4x4 metal box, inch deep, metal devices. So we're looking in 314.16a. Box volume calculations. The volume of a wiring enclosure box shall be the total volume of the assembled sections, and where used, the space provided by plaster rings, domed covers, extension rings, and so forth, that are marked with their volume or are made from boxes in the dimensions of which are listed in table 314.16a. Where a box is provided with one or more securely installed barriers, the volume shall be apportioned to each of the resulting spaces. Each barrier, if not marked with its volume, shall be considered to take up. Sorry, I'm like out of cam. Shall be required to take up. Shall be considered to take up half an inch if metal and an inch if non-metallic. All right. So we read that standard volumes, the volumes of standard boxes that are not marked with their volume shall be given in table 314.16a. And we got our trade size. We got 4x1 quarter. Now a 4x4 inch metal box is a 4x4 one quarter. That round octagonal. This question doesn't say like what type of box it is. It doesn't say square. It doesn't say round octagonal. It just says metal box. 4x4 metal box, right? And we have here trade size, box trade